ever since guitar playing became a thing, we've been known for two things: lording superiority over all bass players, while simultaneously not really knowing the notes that go into the chords that we're actually playing. So today, we're talking a little bit about chord tones, but not in like a boring way, in a way that's actually practical and useful in your playing, all right? We're just gonna do it over one chord to start with. C major 7, all right? Easiest key in the world, really, really easy chord voicing. If you've never played the C major 7, you're in for a treat, my friends. Really great. So here's your C on the A string 3rd fret. Here is the next note, the G, 5th fret, ring finger on the D string, a B, the 4th fret, G string, middle finger, and then an E, pinky 5th fret on the B string. Okay, so a chord tone is basically a note that is inside of a chord, all right? The thing about guitar is like we can really learn a lot of shapes quickly, like C major, A minor, G major, F major, but in my experience, a lot of times not enough importance is really taught about what notes go into those chords, all right? And one of the reasons that may be is because it just becomes memorization. It's like, oh, C major is a C, E, and a G, and F major is an F, A, C, G major, G, B, D, so on and so forth. It's like they just become just little chunks of information that you memorize. That's how I learned it anyway. But I think there's like a better, more practical use for this, right? So again, here's our voicing. If we just look at the frets from the A string to the B string, 3, 5, 4, 5. The notes C, G, B, E. Okay, so one of the reasons I'm using a major 7 chord, aside from just being a huge simp for all major 7 chords, is it uses 4 different notes. I mean, that's going to come into play here. Now, in any key, there's only 7 total notes. So we're using more than half the notes in this key already, all right? In the key of C, there aren't any sharps and flats. It's just A, B, C, D, E, F, G. If you start on a C, it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. All right? We're going to focus in on just the E note in this chord voicing right now. All right? So your pinky on the 5th fret of the B string. All right? Now, why I'm focusing on this note, because I want to kind of go through the other notes in this scale. Right? We're starting with a chord tone, an E on top. If you go to the next note in that key, what comes after E? F. It's just a half step because he doesn't have a sharp, so it really just goes 5 to 6, and then G would be 8. Okay? So from this starting point, we have E, F, G. Okay? Now we can just start to think of this as an extension of the C major scale. However you want to look at it, notes that are available to you that you can play over a C. You can even just start to kind of incorporate them in like a little fun way, like. Right, just something super simple and easy, just to kind of get into the habit of maybe playing a chord and then exploring into the fretboard. All right, sounds great. Really just slow it down, take your time with it. Great time to mention that this video is sponsored by Elixir guitar strings. I just put new Elixir NanoWeb 8020s on this one, and it makes a world of difference just putting fresh Elixirs on it. Best guitar, best acoustic guitar strings you could possibly buy. It says they last 3 to 5 times longer. I have found that to absolutely be the case, if not more than that. Please click that link below. Shout out to Elixir for sponsoring this video. Get yourself some Elixir strings. You probably need them to explore your chord tones to the fullest. All right? So we've got these notes in this key. We could continue maybe just on one string. Maybe if you want to add that 3rd fret on the B string. And maybe just kind of like riff around. You can even just like maybe add a note that you kind of discovered being in that chord to it. Again, a lot of exploration can come with that, but let's do it for all. Let's just go maybe 3 notes through the scale starting on each one of the chord tones, all right? So if we start on the root note, 3rd fret, on the A string is a C, C, D, E, okay? Just 2 full whole steps, 2 frets each, right? So 3, 5, 7. And again, if you think about it, remember we started with this E. So we know C, D, E, 2 frets below is where the D is, 2 frets below is where the C is. We can still go like that. And then I think you start making these connections, like, all right, E, D, C, E, D, C, in different octaves of the guitar, and then you can really kind of start doing these all over the place, all right? So again, all of this is going to be movable in any key. Let's say you're doing something in the key of D, we could just start on the D, and all of those shapes are going to work in any key. So I think it's really important just to start with one, think of the chord tones and where you can go to explore from there, all right? So if you want to focus on the lower ones, right, remember we just had C, D, and E. There's the chord. How about the next note there? Remember G. So the cool thing about C and G in this key is the next two notes from where you begin are the exact same shape. It's a note, 2 frets higher and 2 frets higher. Just like you start on a G, it would be a G, 2 frets higher is A, and 2 frets higher is B. So, okay, so now we have or if you want to do the A string, and see, you kind of get like a call and response thing, just thinking of these different really kind of extensions, offshoots, different shapes, however you want to look at them, but it all comes from starting on a chord tone, thinking of the notes in the scale, and going through it, all right? So we did the E, we did the G, and we did the C. So now it's time for my favorite one, the B, all right? So again, remember, in the chord voicing is where your middle finger is. B does not have a sharp, so the next note is C. So B, C, D. So we just take that, we can just go a half step and then a whole step. Maybe I start on the D string, then B, C, full step, back. Alright, so there's a lot of things that you can do to explore one single chord. We haven't even introduced a secondary chord in here. This is all just a C major 7. The B string. Then we go to the G string. Then the D string. And then end up at the A string, jumping off from the C. And then eventually, once you kind of see it along one string, it becomes a lot easier to connect them in just cool different ways, right? Like maybe you could start with the C, go to that B string, and then just combine them however you want. Okay, so the beautiful thing about this is we've really actually played all the notes in the key of C just using a couple further extensions off of every one of those chord tones, and you have every note in this key available to you, even if it is only in this one kind of spot. The great thing about that is if we start introducing another chord, let's say A minor 7, which is right in the same area, right? It's really just C major, the 5th fret on the D, G, and B strings, which we've played as chord chord offshoots, extensions, whatever I want to look at, and then just get that A, that 5th fret right there. Everything else is still fair game, right? So maybe we could just kind of double up. I'm just kind of riffing in between those chords, right? One thing that you may actually find familiar once you see it from the perspective of that A position is you'll notice maybe an A minor pentatonic shape, right? So like 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. All that stuff is also fair game. So you can mix and match. You could start out thinking of chord tones that take you into a minor pentatonic shape, or maybe a shape that you're more comfortable with, A minor, C major, any of the modes, any arpeggios, all this stuff works, but we're thinking of chord tones as being the launching point into all of that stuff. So for example, if we do that first riff again, and then we do that, well, we're in position, right, to do anything in that A minor pentatonic scale, right? In fact, we've only just added that F note, that 6th fret on the B string, which again is more just indicative of the full C major scale. And again, a lot of that was me thinking, all right, this is A minor pentatonic, which again, the beautiful thing about pentatonic stuff is you can just hammer on. I'm just doing straight hammer-ons. A 5/7, D 5/7, G 5/7, B 5, G 5. After that, right? Really easy. You could just like rip those licks off. But remember, think of the chord tones as ways into the next shape. All right. Another thing, if you want to maybe expand it further into the fretboard, one thing that I really like for any major key is something like this. Just a little piece of a lick or something. You can think of a triad, C major like this, 8, 8, 9, part of like a C major chord. And then think of just the notes that go around this. I've taught a bunch of lessons like this, where it's just 9, G, 8, 10, B, 8, 10, E. If we think of this here, this note here is the same as this note here. There's an E, the major third of C. All this stuff starts to make more sense once you be like, all right, well that is an E, F, G. There's an E, F, G, A, C, D. Maybe I could get a B in there to make like a major 7 chord voicing. All these things start to kind of come together and coalesce because you're starting to think a little bit of the notes. Now again, it's not totally changing the way you're playing. It's just being thoughtful about launching off from one of the tones that is already in your chord and then maybe just expanding it into the next note or the next 2 notes that are in the scale, and then all the scales are going to start to make a little more sense, and you can start to move around. So I can start with this C major, A minor, and then that little chord tone half step. So those are just 3 ideas, right? The first one is the one we started with. That kind of just back from the da 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 little melody thing. The second one, pentatonic, because we know where that is. The third one, and then that triad chord tone from a different chord voicing higher up the neck, right? You can keep going up the neck as far as you really want. It goes on and on, but I think it's really just valuable to think of a launching point going forward, and then once you have that down, you'll really start to think of the notes in a key, and then just slowly but surely maybe expand into another key, right? Like again, here's D major. It's like, all right, well, even though the notes in D major are different than the notes in C major, every note's intervallic relationship, the interval, the spacing between those notes is going to be the same. This, from the root note to where your pinky is, this is always going to be the root note and the major third. So if you start thinking like, all right, D, whole step, E, whole F sharp, right? There's an F sharp, G, A. Then I know that minor pentatonic from D major to B minor, and then I can always go. Again, there's my D major triad up further along the neck, or C, into pentatonic if you really want to. because we all always end up the pentatonic anyways. You don't have to put the pentatonic away just because you learn your chord tones. Actually learning something doesn't mean you have to disqualify the easier, fun, riffing and licking stuff that you used to do. But anyways, I just thought it was like a cool idea that I've been thinking about, just trying to take my time with more melodic stuff and really to think about the notes and how they relate to the chords, and all this stuff just comes together to make really good music. So thank you again to Elixir Strings for sponsoring this video. Feel free to just pick up a pack. It'll last 3, 5, 6 months depending on how long you how often you change your strings, and rocking out the Taylor 614 as usual. So yeah, if you have any questions, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, the website. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks a lot.